Hello. Uh, Welcome to my presentation of why Operation Suvorov initially stalled. So this was basically the 1943 Battle of Smolensk. Introduction. Outline of issues. There were three issues. First, severe weaknesses in the Soviet Air Forces, or you call it the VVS. Second issue was the lack of leadership as opposed to the experienced German commanders. The third issues I'll be talking about was the step-by-step, overly gradual approach of the planning to liberate Smolensk and its surrounding regions. Was this approach insufficient and under-resourced? Issue 1. Severe weaknesses in the Soviet Air Forces, or you call it the VVS. By this time, the VVS was full of new pilots undergoing training and had serious shortage of experienced pilots. The VVS had 3:1 numerical superiority over the Luftwaffe in plane numbers, but many planes were in subpar conditions with manufacturing problems. This gave rise to three issues. First, on average, the Soviet fighter pilots were still less well trained than their German counterparts, making them tactically inferior. Second, the operational effectiveness of planes become becomes much lower became much lower despite great numbers, making it harder for Soviet pilots to carry out air operations more frequently. So in this case, when talking about air operation, it will be basically called sorties. So the Germans pilots were able to carry out more sorties on average per day. The Soviet air arm was indeed becoming more powerful in 1943 after the devastating defeat in 1941 and gradual recovery in 1942. But were they up to task against the best German pilots defending the Smolensk sector in the Jagdgruppen 51 of Luftwaffe Luftflotte 6? So Luftflotte 6 usually refer to the air fleet, the air fleet of the German Air Force. So the Jagdgruppe is is the German word for fighter group. So it's like a subdivision it's one of the subdivision in an air army, or you call it the air fleet. So this was one of the main reason why the Soviet offensive initially stalled from 7 to 20 August. Second issue, lack of effective leadership as opposed to experienced German commanders. Sokolowski, the commander of Western Front, had mainly staff experience but little frontline one. So, according to the book by Robert Foch, Sokolowski was like mainly a paper pusher. So, yeah, I think he was labeled as being very mediocre compared to someone of Zhukov stature. So he was like very good at following orders. But when it comes to carry out very ambitious operation, he was definitely lacking in that department. Euromenkov, the commander of the Kalinin Front, was a capable frontline officer with an offensive-oriented panache, but got recently bogged down in a political dispute. So this political dispute referred to the one between Stalin and Khrushchev, Nikita Khrushchev, which was the future Soviet leader. So the Kalinin Front and the Western Front, both of them were the were the main like were the main Soviet army groups in this Operation Suvorov, facing off against the Army Group Center. So Euromenkov was like, I mean, when it comes to the practical like frontline experience, Euromenkov was definitely better than Sokolowski. I mean, according to a big book in that sense, because of his very aggressive command style, but because of the the way the political bureaucracy political bureaucracy the way they stymie the military leadership in this battle. That's why there was this lack of effective leadership on the Soviet side. On the other hand, the German military council was a lot more streamlined and professional. So like German military leaders like Gunther von Kluge, the commander of Heeresgruppe Mittel, he was a more he was a very careful commander, and he was very astute when it comes to like political maneuvering with the Nazis, so he actually disliked them according to the book by Robert Feucht, but because he was good at like the political side, that's why that's why he has a lot more freedom when it comes to like the planning in this battle. Also, like the commander of Fourth Army, which was the one defending the main approaches to Smolensk, Gotha Henry, he was, as you all know, he was a very famous defense expert in the Third Reich. So one of his favorite method of defense was like he will rely on very good good German intelligence, because he will rely on very good German intelligence to know on which day the Soviet attack will start and the time of the next artillery barrage. Then he will withdraw all his troops from the front line to another line at the back. So the artillery will basically hit all those empty trenches at the front. After that, he will redeploy his troops from the back from the back to the front again. So yeah, this was one of his famous tactics by basically Henry Sai. So he was the commander of the Fourth Army. So both leaders were extremely professional and enjoy relatively little interference from Hitler. So this give rise to two issues for the Soviet side. So smashing through the elaborate and well-placed defenses of the German lines require tough leaders like Zhukov or clever ones like Rokossovsky. So I mean, just take this at my words, because as you all know, before the Operation Suvorov, there was this huge gamble by Zhukov to smash Army Route Center at Rzhev. So the Operation Mars, which was Operation Mars, and it was quite a failure, a colossal failure. So yeah, take this point at my words, so because Zhukov didn't manage to like break through the German defense at Rzhev. Yeah, but anyway, I'll continue. So the leaders in charge of Suvorov were relatively weak. So I'll say relatively weak in I don't mean in absolute terms. I'm just saying it's just that for this campaign, they were deemed to be weaker. I mean, at least from the way the author of the book, the way they portray these two commanders, they seems to be like mediocre as compared to like Zhukov and Rokossovsky. Yeah, but I say take it at my word, and this was like the subtle intention of the author when he destroyed the two commanders on the Soviet side. So in contrast, the German commanders handling the defense of Smolensk were more suited for the task. Kluge was a careful commander, so this I already mentioned this point. Henry Sai I also mentioned this point. So you all know he was in charge of the Fourth Army, which had around 18 divisions. And I believe the 18 divisions in total were like 6 corps in total, 6 organized into 6 corps. So the Fourth Army was like the main opponent in this campaign. So Henry Sai was very, when it comes to defensive tactics, he was very innovative. He will have multiple defense lines, and he will know how to, he was very good at coordinating all these combined arms defense when it comes to like using the combination of artillery, mortar, and anti-tank gun, machine guns in a way to, in all these like multiple layer German defense to basically stall any like Soviet attack. So he was very good at that. And I think one of the notable tactics used by the Germans in this battle was they used a strategy called, I think it's called the scoop, or scoop or move. I think something like that according to the book. Basically, he will move all the. They will make sure their artillery were mobile so that the Soviet like artillery couldn't like target them in a preemptive strike. So once they fire a barrage, the artillery was moved to new locations constantly. So this make it harder for the Soviet to do counter barrage. And also the Soviet also let when it comes to defense strategy, the Soviet like when it comes to attacking like the German defense, the Soviet let the tactical intelligence of, of like where the Germans reserve were hidden. So this usually allow the Germans to counter attack any like advances Soviet troops. Yeah, and also yeah, okay, then I'll move on to the next one. So the issue is the step-by-step overly approach of the planning to liberate Smolensk and its surrounding regions insufficient and under-resourced. So after the mistake of Operation Mars, which was deemed ambitious, Operation Suvorov was designed to be less decisive with gradual reinforcement of vanguard units rather than all-out attacking force. So according to Dubé, basically they will attack they attack in two echelon. They attack the German front line in two echelon with two armies in each echelon. So they what Sokolowski planned to do was to slowly feed troops as they meet their way through the German lines. So instead of committing all your entire forces to attack, he will slowly like feed the units into the battle. So a considerable less armor support was available for Suvorov. So due to the depth of German defenses, most armor units were tasked with anti-infantry role like neutralizing dugouts. Hence the Soviet actually used a lot of cavalry formations to help out with the exploitation job in the forested area of central Russia, which obviously I'm referring to Smolensk, the Vitebsk Smolensk region, Vitebsk Smolensk, Iena, basically this area. So like I believe because most of I think most of Sokolowski was the commander in charge of Western Front. So most of the Western Front like 10 corps were committed to Operation Kutuzov, which was taking place during this time. Because the 1943 operation of the 1943 liberation of Smolensk took place at the same time as the counter-offensive at Kursk. So there were two counter-offensive ongoing, Operation Kutuzov and Operation Lumansky. I don't know how to pronounce Operation Lumansky. The one directed against Mainstein Army Route South at Kursk. So yeah, at this time Operation Suvorov had only one mechanized formation. I believe it was like the fifth tank corps. So for exploitation role, they only have like one tank corps for that purpose. Yeah, so but because basically the Soviet commanders, they were learning from the mistake of Operation Mars. So because based on the experience of Operation Mars, uh by the a lot of the Soviet mechanized formation were cut off by the German mobile reserve. In this operation, the Germans had a lot less armored reserve as compared to the time of Operation Mars. So I believe they only have 500 tanks, and the Soviets had like at least 1.5k tanks. So by not committing in sufficient armored forces to this campaign, the Soviet might have miss out the chance of basically destroying destroying more like German units, because the German had less armor reserve in this battle as compared to Operation Mars. So was Operation Suvorov too ambitious? I mean, too methodical, too like less ambitious? Yeah. So this is the kind of question you might want to ask. So references. Yeah, and thank you very much.